3 weeks before my business launch, my business partner cut me out of the company we built together and handed my half to my own sister. My parents told me to sign the papers and be grateful I still had a job there. Months later, they were standing on my porch at midnight, begging me to make one phone call that could save everything they had. Hey everyone. Never thought I'd be sitting here typing this out, but I've got nowhere else to put it. What happened to my family this year still doesn't feel real. And some nights I genuinely can't tell if I overreacted, or if they're exactly as cold as I think they are. It started with a coffee roasting business, my younger sister, and a string of decisions that blew my whole life apart. I guess I'll start from the beginning. My name's Derek, I'm 31, and up until last spring, I thought I'd finally cracked the code on adult life. 2 years earlier, I'd partnered up with a guy named Owen to open a specialty coffee roastery outside Portland. We met at a trade show in Seattle, hit it off over bad convention coffee of all things, and decided we could do better. Put in my savings, he put in his connections, and together we built something that actually worked. Small batch beans, a tasting room, a wholesale account with about a dozen local cafes. It wasn't Starbucks money, but it was ours, and for the first time in my life I felt like I'd built something real, instead of just clocking in somewhere for somebody else. Owen handled the front of house stuff, charm, sales, talking to investors. I handled roasting, sourcing, the actual product. We balanced each other out. At least that's what I thought. Everything was fine until my sister Tess came back into the picture. She's 3 years younger than me, and she'd just finished some marketing fellowship in Chicago. And suddenly she was all our parents could talk about. Tess landed a campaign for a regional brand. Tess got headhunted. Tess this, Tess that. Meanwhile, I'm just the guy with a coffee shop, like I'd opened a lemonade stand, instead of building an actual company with payroll and a wholesale operation. At first I was glad when Owen brought Tess on as a marketing consultant for our brand. Made sense, she's good at what she does, and she helped us land 2 new accounts in her first month. They started talking strategy constantly, social media calendars, rebrand concepts, stuff that honestly bored me half to death. I figured that was just the work. I trusted both of them. But then I started noticing how often Tess's name came up in conversations that had nothing to do with marketing. Tess thinks we should expand into Eugene. Tess says the wholesale margins are too thin. It started as background noise. Then it was every other sentence out of Owen's mouth. 3 weeks before we were set to open our second location, downtown, our big expansion, the one we'd been planning for over a year, Owen texts me asking to grab coffee. Not at the roastery. At this diner near my apartment where we used to meet back when we were just 2 guys with a business plan and no money. My stomach was already in knots before I even sat down. He was already at the booth when I walked in. He had a folder in front of him, and he wouldn't look at me right. We need to restructure the partnership, he said. No warm-up, nothing. I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. I asked if this was about the lease for the 2 space. He shook his head. It's about Tess. I want to bring her on as full partner. And I think it makes more sense if your stake gets adjusted. It felt like someone opened a window in the middle of winter. I didn't yell, I didn't flip the table. I just sat there staring at him, watching this guy I'd built a company with show me a side of himself I'd never seen before. He tried to make it sound careful, reasonable, but underneath it he was annoyed I wasn't making it easy for him. Then he slid the folder across the table. Buyout offer. It's fair, Derek. More than fair. It wasn't fair. It was 20 cents on the dollar of what my stake was actually worth, and we both knew it. That night I called my parents, thinking they'd be as floored as I was. My mom picked up and already knew. Like she'd been briefed. She said maybe this was for the best, that Tess and Owen worked better together than Owen and I ever did. My dad got on the line and said something about how Tess has the vision for where the brand needs to go. When I asked if they were seriously fine with my own sister muscling into my company 3 weeks before our biggest expansion, neither of them even paused. People find better fits, Derek, my mom said. This could be good for everyone. My dad added, you'll land on your feet, you always do. Then I heard Tess's voice in the background, and a second later she got on the phone, like this was all already settled. Look, I know the timing is rough, but Owen and I have been talking strategy for months. This isn't personal. It's just business. How generous of her. Calling it just business when it was my business. Then the kicker. She asked if she could keep using my supplier contacts for the new location, said it made sense since I'd already done the legwork and it would be a waste to start from scratch. My parents actually murmured agreement on the call. Like that was a totally normal thing to ask your brother. So let me get this straight. My sister takes my company. My parents cheer her on. And now they want my supplier list too. That's the moment it clicked for me. It never mattered what I felt to them. Tess's success would always outweigh mine. Always. I didn't argue on the phone. I just said I needed to think and hung up. Sometimes quiet says more than anything you could scream. A few days later my parents called again, but not to check on me. They wanted to share good news. Owen and Tess had officially announced the rebrand, with Tess as co-owner. On the company's social media. My mom sounded thrilled. Like she'd been waiting years for this moment. My dad said it was smart business, that the two of them found each other professionally. Meanwhile I'm sitting there thinking, smart business? No. This was a hostile takeover dressed up as a partnership. I checked the company page that night. New logo concept. New name even. Tess Hale worked smoothly into the branding language, smiling photo of Owen and Tess in the roastery I built, captioned something about exciting new chapters. Hundreds of comments from family friends, congratulating them. Not one word about me, not even a tag. That was the night it really hit me. I wasn't part of this company anymore. Maybe in their eyes I never really had been, just the guy who did the unglamorous work before the real talent showed up. I went dark for about 2 weeks after that. Didn't answer my parents' calls. Didn't reply to Tess's texts, which mostly consisted of, "We should talk when you're less emotional." Which somehow made it worse every time I read it. My friends checked in, but how do you explain something like this without sounding insane? Yeah. My sister and my business partner pushed me out of my own coffee company, and now my parents think I should be supportive. People just go quiet and say, "Man, that's rough," and change the subject. Because there's nowhere else to take that conversation. My parents showed up at my apartment uninvited on a Saturday morning, both of them, dressed like they were heading somewhere important afterward. I opened the door, and there they were, smiling like nothing had happened. "Derek," my mom said, smoothing her jacket. "We need to talk about the buyout." I just stood there a second. There's nothing to talk about. I haven't signed anything. My dad's jaw tightened. "That's exactly why we're here. You need to sign, son. Owen's lawyer says the offer expires Friday." I laughed, couldn't help it. "So my sister and my partner push me out of the company I built, lowball me on the buyout, and you're here to help them pressure me into signing? You hear yourselves?" My dad's voice went hard. "Enough with the martyr act. We're here because this is tearing the family apart, and Tess needs you to be reasonable about this. She wants you at the relaunch party. She wants this to be smooth." I actually thought he was joking. She wants me at the relaunch party for the business she took from me? It would mean a lot to her, and to us, my mom said, like she was reading off a card. "It shows maturity, Derek. It shows you're bigger than this." I stared at them, waiting for some sign this was a prank. You really think I'm going to stand there and smile while she takes credit for 2 years of my work? My dad stepped closer, dropping into that tone he uses when he thinks he's being wise. "Think about how it looks if you're not there. People will ask questions. Is that the kind of embarrassment you want hanging over this family?" There it was, not my feelings, not what I'd lost. Just their obsession with how things looked from the outside. "You know what's actually embarrassing?" I said. "The fact that you knew Tess and Owen had been planning this for months and didn't say a word to me. The fact that you're standing in my kitchen asking me to smile for the people who pushed me out." My mom's eyes narrowed. "We only knew bits and pieces. We didn't want to stir up trouble where there might not have been any yet." "Not stir up trouble?" I said. "So you let me walk in blind while my own sister was already negotiating my exit behind my back. That's not staying out of it. That's setting me up." My dad's voice sharpened. "Derek, they tried to handle this the right way. Tess didn't even bring it up to us until after she and Owen had a real plan." "Oh, a real plan. How thoughtful. Guess I should send them a thank you card for the courtesy." The room went quiet for a beat. My dad cleared his throat. "Regardless, the relaunch is happening. Tess is excited. Owen is excited. We expect you to show up and act like family." I stood up and looked at both of them. "Let me make this clear. I'm not going to that relaunch. I'm not smiling in photos for a brand that has my recipes and my supplier relationships and none of my name on it. You can call it business, you can call it family, I call it theft." My mom's voice went cold. "You're being dramatic. She's your sister. This is your chance to show loyalty." "No," I said flatly. "This is my chance to keep what little dignity I have left." Which apparently none of you remember the meaning of. They didn't stay much longer after that. More comments about me being selfish, more disappointed looks, and then they left. I shut the door and stood there a long while, hands shaking, chest tight with something that felt like anger and relief tangled together. For once I hadn't folded. The relaunch happened a few weeks later. I wasn't there, obviously. Didn't send flowers, didn't send a card, nothing. I found out through social media like everyone else. Photos of the new downtown location packed with people, Owen and Tess cutting a ribbon together. My parents beaming in the background, like proud sponsors. They'd kept the roastery's original branding elements. The ones I'd designed. Just slapped a new name over it. Hale Roasting Co. Cute. Scrolling through it that night, I realized something. Maybe this was actually the best thing that could have happened. Because now I knew exactly where I stood with all of them. I figured that was the end of it. They'd have their grand opening, their glowing local news write-up, their sibling success story headline that a community paper actually ran. I thought maybe they'd finally just leave me be. I should have known better. My family doesn't quit, not because they care, but because they hate losing control of a narrative. At first it was small stuff. My mom leaving voicemails about Sunday dinners, asking if I'd cooled down yet. My dad sending these clipped texts about how isolating myself was beneath me. I ignored most of it. Then one evening I came home and noticed my apartment door wasn't locked all the way. I figured I'd been careless that morning. But when I stepped inside, there they were. My mom, my dad, and Tess, sitting in my living room like they'd been invited. My stomach dropped. The only way they'd gotten in was with the spare key I'd given my parents 2 years ago for emergencies. I guess in their world, me not playing along counted as one. "What are you doing in my apartment?" I said, dropping my bag by the door. My dad leaned back on my own couch, completely at ease. "We need to talk." "No," I said immediately. "You need to leave, Derek." Tess stood up, hands raised like I was something dangerous. "Just give us 5 minutes." "Fine," I said. "Leave. This has gone on long enough," my mom snapped, like somehow she'd been the one wronged here. "You're 31 years old, acting like a child about a business decision." I laughed. No warmth in it at all. "A business decision? That's what you're calling it when my sister and my partner cut me out and lowballed the buyout?" Tess's voice rose. "I'm tired of feeling guilty for being good at my job. For once I built something I'm proud of, and all you do is act like I stole it." "You mean rebranding the company I founded under your own name?"
Yeah. Real impressive.
"Enough." My dad's voice boomed through the apartment. He stood, pointing at me like I was 12. "This resentment is poisoning everything. Tess didn't steal anything. She made a smart move. It's time you let it go. Owen and Tess are happy. We're all happy. The only one sulking around here is you, and that's what you keep making." I just stood there looking at the three of them, the people who were supposed to be my corner, and all I could think was, they will never actually see me. Not once. "You're right," I said, quietly. They all looked a little surprised, like maybe I was finally caving. "I am making a choice," said. "I'm choosing not to pretend this is okay. I'm done trying to earn approval from people who only ever clap for the other kid." My dad's expression hardened. "If you can't move past this, Derek, maybe you don't belong in this family the way you think you do." I held his eyes. "And if I don't move past it, what then?" His jaw tightened. "Then we'll have no choice but to cut you off financially. For real this time, not a threat." I stepped to the door and pulled it wide open. "Then do it. Because I'm done pretending this is a family that actually has my back." We stared each other down for a long second. Finally he looked away, muttering something to my mom about how I'd regret this. They filed out, still throwing comments about me tearing things apart. I told them to leave the spare key on the counter, on their way out. No more surprise visits. For the first time in months I felt like I'd taken something back. Of course I had no idea then how far it would actually go. For a few weeks things were quiet. Too quiet, in hindsight. Then small things started happening that didn't sit right. I work in commercial real estate now, brokering retail and restaurant spaces. Picked it up after I left the roastery to keep paying rent. My manager, who'd always been straightforward with me, started acting distant. Stopped looping me into client calls I used to run point on. A coworker asked, in that careful tone you use with someone you think might be unraveling, if I was doing okay. Then my manager pulled me into his office, closed the door, leaned back and gave me a look like he had bad news to deliver. "Derek," he said carefully, "your father called the office." My stomach dropped. Apparently my dad had reached out through some old client connection. Said he was concerned about me, said I'd been unstable, since some business falling out. That I might not be reliable with clients right now. Framed as concern. It was a hit job, a way to make me look unreliable enough that I'd come crawling back to the family for support. I sat there gripping the armrest of the chair so hard my knuckles ached. My manager added quickly, "For the record, I don't believe a word of it. You're one of the most consistent people on this team." HR actually logged the call as an inappropriate third-party complaint, which honestly worked in your favor on paper. Just figured you should know. That night I called my dad. "No, hello. What the hell are you doing calling my office?" He didn't even deny it. "I was worried, Derek. You've shut us all out. I thought your employer should know in case." "In case what?" I cut in. "In case I embarrassed you? You tried to wreck my job because I wouldn't show up and smile at a relaunch party." "Speak, don't be dramatic," he said in that flat, patronizing voice. "I was trying to protect you." "No," I shot back. "You were trying to control me. And when guilt didn't work, you went for sabotage." Silence. For a second I thought maybe it had actually landed. Then his voice dropped. Colder than I'd ever heard it. "If you won't let this go, Derek, then maybe you really don't belong in this family." My heart was pounding, but I made myself say it. "And if I don't let it go, then what?" A pause. Then we'll make it official." I hung up before he could finish whatever he was going to say next. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. A week later he showed up at my door in one of his good suits, an envelope in hand, wearing that same grim look he used to wear right before grounding me as a teenager. Except this wasn't about a curfew. This is your choice, he said, holding it out. I took it without breaking eye contact. Heavy paper, his estate attorney's letterhead. Legal language, but the point was simple. I was being removed from the family trust. No claim to any inheritance, no financial ties going forward. Both his and my mom's signatures at the bottom. I read it twice. You actually did it. You forced our hand, he said, like it was somehow my doing. I forced your hand, I repeated slowly, by being upset that my sister took my company. You forced our hand by choosing pride over family. Tess has always had better instincts for this stuff anyway. Maybe we should have done this years ago. That one landed harder than I wanted to admit. But I didn't let it show on my face. I folded the letter, slid it back in the envelope and handed it to him. You're right. This is what I chose. Thanks for making it simple. Behind him I could see my mom sitting in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, refusing to look at the door. He turned and walked back to the car without another word. I shut the door, locked it and leaned against it for a long time. Just breathing. I thought that was the end of it. I had no idea what was still coming. 3 weeks after the disownment letter, I genuinely believed it was over. They'd cut me off. Cut them out. Quiet finally in a way that almost felt like peace. Then one night around midnight, I woke up to pounding on my front door so hard it rattled the frame. Not knocking. Fists slamming like someone trying to break the hinges. I sat up, disoriented, grabbed my phone, and that's when my stomach flipped. 40-something missed calls, dozens of voicemails, a wall of texts, all from my mom, my dad, Tess. The pounding didn't stop. I could hear my mom's voice cracking through the door, half shouting, half sobbing. Instead of rushing over, I got up, pulled on sweatpants, and went to put on coffee. Let the machine hiss and gurgle while they kept going. If they wanted my attention this badly, they could wait until I had caffeine in me. When I finally opened the door, they nearly fell into the apartment. My dad looked wrecked, tie loose, eyes red like he hadn't slept. My mom's makeup was smeared down her face. Tess looked worst of all, pale, sweating, hair a mess like she'd been pulling at it. Thank God, my dad muttered, pushing past me into the living room. I leaned against the counter with my coffee. Do we have something to talk about? Last I checked, I'm not family anymore. Your words. My mom grabbed both my arms, desperate. Derek, please, just tell us what you did. Tell who what. Don't play dumb, Tess snapped, pacing my living room like a trapped animal. The investors. Someone leaked everything to them. I raised an eyebrow. Leaked what? My dad's voice shook as he pulled a printed email chain from his jacket and slapped it on my coffee table. Hale Roasting's lead investor is pulling out. He says he has documentation that Tess used confidential supplier contracts and trade secrets that legally still belong to you. That the rebrand misrepresented company ownership history to investors. He's threatening to go to the local business press. The whole expansion is collapsing. I scanned a few lines and actually laughed. You think I did this? I didn't even know about the investor meeting. I haven't talked to any of these people in months. You're the only one with motive, my dad shot back. You wanted revenge? Revenge? I scoffed. You legally cut me off 3 weeks ago. Why would I lift a finger when I can just sit here and watch this happen on its own? My mom sobbed harder. Please, Derek, if you started this, stop it. Call them. Explain it's a misunderstanding. They'll destroy everything Tess built. I looked at her steadily. You disowned me. You don't get to ask me for help now. The room went heavy. Tess froze mid-pace, face draining of color. She jabbed a finger at me. It had to be you. Who else would even know about the original supplier agreements? Sure, I said, grinning despite myself. I hacked into a private investor meeting from my apartment between client calls. Totally plausible. Tess's voice cracked. Shut up. You've always wanted to see this fail. Funny, I said. Looks like it's doing a fine job of that without me. That's when she stopped pacing. Her eyes went wide like she'd been struck. She ran a shaky hand through her hair. Oh my God, she muttered, it's Marisol. My mom's head whipped toward her. Who? Tessa's chest heaved. The new operations hire. She joined right after the relaunch. I told her everything, the original deal with Derek, the buyout numbers, how we structured the ownership transfer. I thought she needed the full picture to do her job. I never thought she'd. My dad's face went gray. You told an employee the details of the buyout? I didn't think it mattered. I thought she was on our side. I leaned against the counter sipping my coffee. So let me get this straight. You took my company, lowballed me on the buyout, got my parents to disown me over it. And now you're telling me you handed the whole ugly truth to some new hire. And I'm the one you came here to accuse. Shut up, Tess barked, hands shaking as she grabbed her phone. We'll find out right now. She dialed, put it on speaker, set it on the table. All three of them hovered over it like it might detonate. 3 rings. Then a voice. Tess. It's late. I'm actually with the investor right now, finalizing some paperwork. Tess leaned over the phone. We need to talk now. I'm a little busy, Marisol said, almost amused. Don't play games, Tess snapped, voice nearly breaking. The investor pulling out, the documents, the press threat. Did you do this? A pause stretched long enough to feel like its own kind of answer. Then a short, sharp laugh came through the speaker, nothing like the warm professional tone she must have used in the office. "You really still don't get it, do you?" Marisol said. My mom gasped. My dad's fists clenched. Tess looked like the floor was opening under her. "What do you mean?" Tess whispered. "I mean, this was never about helping you build a brand," Marisol said. "You were the way in." Tess stumbled back like she'd been slapped. "What?" "You were never the goal," Marisol continued. "You were the shortcut." The room went dead silent. Even I stopped breathing for a second. "Shot to what?" Tess croaked. "To your father?" Marisol said flatly. "To his old development firm. To the Brightline project." My dad stepped forward, voice booming. "What does the Brightline project have to do with any of this?" Marisol didn't hesitate. "The affordable housing project your firm walked away from 8 years ago. The one where you pocketed the city's subsidy and let the building sit half-finished for 2 winters before it was condemned." My mother lived in Unit 4C. She had asthma. She didn't survive the second winter without working heat. It was like someone had vacuumed every bit of air out of the room. I glanced at my dad for what felt like the first time in my life, and I saw something genuinely crack in his face. "You're lying," he said, but his voice wavered. "Am I?" Marisol shot back. "Because the inspection reports, the subsidy paperwork, the emails, where you and your partners decided it wasn't worth finishing, they're all sitting with a reporter at the Oregonian right now. Everything you thought was buried, I dug back up. And by tomorrow morning, everyone will know." My mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Tess looked like she might be sick. My dad just stood there, trembling somewhere between rage and fear. I couldn't help it. I laughed, not because any of it was funny, but because the irony cut so deep. All their scheming, all their lectures about loyalty and family first. And it was a woman none of us had even met a few months ago, who took the whole thing apart. Tess clutched the phone like it was the only solid thing left in the room. "Marisol, please. I thought you actually. I studied all of you." Marisol cut in, calm and surgical. "Derek's old supplier list got me close enough to your operation to apply for the job. You hired me fast because you needed someone who already understood the business. Then you handed me everything else yourself. You made it easy." "You used me," Tess whispered. "Yes," Marisol said simply, "and you made it easy." My dad barked into the phone. "Do you understand what you've done? You're going to destroy a company. Ruin people's livelihoods." "No," Marisol cut him off. Voice hard now. "You did that 8 years ago. You destroyed my mother's health when you decided a subsidy check mattered more than finishing the heating system. All I did was pull back the curtain." Silence after that was brutal. My mom sobbing, Tess's ragged breathing, my dad grinding his teeth like he might actually break something. And me standing there with my coffee, watching it all come apart. Marisol's voice softened, but there was no kindness in it. "Enjoy what's left of it, I'll be watching." Then the line went dead. Nobody moved for a long moment. Finally my dad sank into a chair, head in his hands. My mom rocked back and forth, whispering something under her breath. Tess slid down to the floor, phone clattering beside her, making a sound somewhere between a sob and a scream. I set my mug down, walked to the door and pulled it open. "Well," I said evenly, "looks like you got your answer." My dad shot up, eyes blazing. "This isn't over. We'll fix this." "Good luck with that," I said. "Leave me out of it. I'm not family, remember, your words." They filed out eventually, stumbling into the dark like they'd aged a decade in one night. Tess wouldn't look at me. My mom avoided my eyes completely. My dad slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. When the apartment went quiet again, I sat back down with my coffee and looked at the old company keychain still sitting on my counter. The one with the original roastery logo I'd designed myself. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the one who got broken. For once it wasn't my life under their boot. It was theirs. And the best part, I didn't have to lift a single finger. Marisol did all of it. And she didn't do it for me. She did it for her own family. The story hit the local business section the next morning. Headline about a development firm. Built on a subsidized housing project gone wrong. An elderly tenant who died waiting for working heat. Internal emails confirming the firm knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't hold back. Named names, dates, dollar amounts. By noon, 2 of Hale Roasting's biggest wholesale accounts had quietly ended their contracts, not wanting to be associated with the family name now circulating online. By the end of the week, the State Real Estate Licensing Board had opened a formal inquiry into my dad's old development firm. Years of polished reputation, gone in about 7 days. I didn't go anywhere near their house, didn't need to. Word travels fast in a city that size. Old colleagues stopped returning my dad's calls. My mom, who'd spent her whole life curating how the family looked from the outside, now had her name attached to a scandal trending in local Portland business circles. Tess wasn't spared either. Word got around fast that Marisol had been the source. The brand new partnership with Owen started fraying almost immediately. Between the investor pulling out and the press attention, the relaunch. They'd thrown such a big party for Betrayal stout within a month. Owen started distancing himself in every public statement, careful to mention it was Tess's operational decisions that led to the hiring issue. About 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed. Tess's name on the screen? Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello. Just breathing at first, then her voice cracked and small. She took everything. The investor, the accounts. Owen barely talks to me now. I leaned back in my chair staring at the ceiling. No, I said slowly. She revealed everything. Silence on her end. I could practically feel her unraveling through the phone. Then the line went dead. That was the last time we spoke. My mom started seeing someone, a therapist, according to one of her sisters who still talks to me. Apparently trying to unpack a lot of things she'd spent decades not looking at directly. My dad mostly stays home now. A man who used to walk into city permit meetings like he owned the room now barely answers his door. Meanwhile, I kept moving forward. My firm promoted me to senior broker last month. The extra hours I poured into work after everything fell apart actually paid off. I put a deposit down on a small house in Milwaukee, just outside the city, painted the kitchen a color nobody approved of but me. Filled it with furniture I actually liked, instead of stuff meant to impress people who'd never bother visiting anyway. And then there was Hannah. Not flashy, not playing any kind of angle, never once comparing me to my sister. We met through a coworker, grabbed drinks, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I didn't feel like I was auditioning for something. She laughed at my terrible jokes, asked real questions about my work, never once brought up my last name like it meant anything beyond being mine. A few months in, curled up on the couch one night, she asked if I ever regretted walking away from my family. I thought about it for a long time before I answered honestly. I told her I missed the family I thought I had. But that family never actually existed. What I had was a group of people held together by blood and control, who saw my sister as the talent in me, as the guy who did the unglamorous groundwork before the real player showed up. The moment I stopped playing along, they dropped me without blinking. It stung. Of course it stung. But it was also the most freeing thing that ever happened to me. Marisol probably thinks she ruined my family. Maybe she did. But what she actually did was set me free. Free from the weight of their approval. Free from the trap of constantly trying to be enough for people who'd already decided I wasn't. My real family now is Hannah, who makes me laugh until my ribs hurt. It's my old coworker Greg, who texted me every single day after the buyout, just to make sure I was still standing. It's my downstairs neighbor Ruth, who leaves soup outside my door when I'm sick and never asks for a thing in return. That's family. The people who choose to stay, not the ones who only show up when it's convenient. And every time I look at that old keychain sitting on my counter, I don't feel the sting anymore. I feel relief. Relief that I got out of a business and a family that ran on lies. Relief that I dodged a future built on someone else's idea of what I should be grateful for. My dad's reputation is gone. Tess's partnership is gone. My old life is gone. And honestly, good riddance. I finally get to build something that's actually mine. And for the first time maybe ever, I'm not looking for their approval. I never needed it to begin with. Because family was never about blood. It's about who actually shows up when everything falls apart. And mine, the one I built myself, is finally worth keeping.